So we're going to be looking at materials that are located here in section 2 of As You Learn, interview/observation assignment. We're going solely with the interview this semester. And we're going to be looking at the Google Slides, the rubric, and the sample analysis paper. So buckle up. Okay, let's start out with our slides here. So your first step is obviously creating a transcript. So this is, actually your first step in analyzing the interview, because even as you create a transcript, you're transforming the verbal interview that you had into your notes. And so you're deciding, what you're keeping and what you're taking out and how you're expressing things. So this is why it's really important to listen to your interview more than one time. And it's fine to use notes for what occurred, but make sure that you also transcribe word for word important ideas and quotes in the participants' own words, because when you summarize what they're saying, you are changing what they're saying into your interpretation. So that's an analysis. So that's why it's important. It's fine to do, and you have to do some summary of what they were communicating to you, but in this paper, you are centralizing their point of view and their voice, and you're lifting up their voice. And so you want to make sure that you do include direct quotes, both in the narrative of your paper, the analysis piece, as well as obviously in your transcript. If you want the practice and you don't mind, typing your transcript out word for word, there's nothing wrong with that. It just takes a lot longer. So that's step number 1, is to create a solid transcript. So after that, after you've had that opportunity, you should be feeling pretty close to your interview, pretty familiar with it, pretty familiar with even the cadence of your participants' tone of voice and things like that. And you want to think about, well, what was this person really emphasizing to me? What did they think was the most important thing about this topic? And think about this in terms of, what were 2 or 3 things that I think this person was really wanting me to understand from their experience or from their point of view. And that's what you're going to sort of tell me about in your summary and analysis of the interview. Is, again, what were the key themes? What was the most important things that you learned? What were the most important things to that person? And then what specific evidence from the interview illustrates what their thoughts are on that thing. So in the introduction to your interview, you're going to tell me about your participant and introduce these themes, and then you're going to describe the themes and provide specific evidence, also known as quotes from your interview, to illustrate those ideas. And then the final aspect of your analysis is thinking about the interview in light of what you learned through your literature review. So in this analysis paper, you are centralizing your participants' point of view. That is the most important thing. But you're also reflecting on, okay, well, how does their experience or their point of view agree with or come into discussion with what I've already learned through my review of the literature. And that's kind of that reflection piece when you look at the rubric. So the critical reflection part of our rubric is for you to think about, well, where was I on this issue previously? What did I learn via this interview? Was there anything that was confirmed or disconfirmed, or did the interview raise further questions for me? Again, comparisons and contradictions with the review of the literature. And anything more, that any further insights that you gained about key course concepts, or maybe whatever the central concept is for you. So I know, like, at least one of you was discussing critical race theory. Did you gain a better understanding of that idea? And you all that are looking at Tatum's book, did you gain a better understanding of like institutional versus individual racism via your interview? You want to make sure that you do cite any of the connections that you're making and include a reference list. And this is where, you know, if I gave you feedback on your formatting for your references in this paper and in your final paper, those corrections need to be applied, please. The format of your paper is you're going to have a narrative summary of what happened in the interview, an analysis of what the key ideas were and examples of those, and then a reflection on what you learned. You're going to have your reference list, and then your protocol, which is your questions, and your transcription. That is going to go at the very end of your paper. So let's have a look at the rubric very briefly, and then the sample analysis paper. And I do apologize, this is going to run a little bit longer than anyone likes, but rubric is right here. I already have it open over here. So the first page is the description of the assignment, and then down here is the rubric. One of the things that I just want to emphasize is this part about introducing your interview participant. If you just introduce them very briefly and you don't explain a little bit about who they are, then you're not taking into consideration clearly enough their cultural background and their racial, social, gender identity as lenses that influence their positionality. So it doesn't have to be super long, but explain to me either in the introduction and or throughout your interview sort of what you learned about their positionality with regards to race, social class, language, whatever is most, gender identity, whatever is most salient, or there may be several salient identity features that they're touching on in the interview that you're exploring, and that should be clearly stated. Otherwise, if you don't state that, you're sort of just leaving it up to the reader to try to make assumptions about that. Anyway, be clear about who the person is, how you know them, how the interview sort of went down. And that doesn't have to take a long time, just be clear about that. You're going to have an introduction, introduce, okay, here are the important things that we discussed, and then you're going to go into your into describing those and providing examples of those. This part that their perspective is clearly represented, that means utilizing enough direct quotes from the interview to really illustrate their point of view in their own words rather than you just summarizing it. Because again, when you're summarizing their point of view, you're changing it, which is a normal aspect of, writing up research. That's the deal. But so that's this aspect of the rubric. The second aspect is the critical reflection piece. You can include your critical reflection like throughout the paper. So say, your first theme was developing caring relationships with caring and authentic relationships with families and how that it should look like. You can describe the participant's viewpoint as well as connections to literature and what you learned, all together, or you can kind of separate that out into two different sections. So that's really kind of up to you. And then this just mentions the written delivery aspects. Let's see. Let's quickly look at the sample paper. Sorry, this is going a little long. So again, you want to have a title page. Sorry, having a mental break. So you have your running head up here. This person didn't write the words running head. That's fine. You can just have your header. Your page number should be in the header. The page number should actually be the same font as everything else. It's not in this case. And then, yeah, title page. And then you don't need to write your title on the second page because it's already on the title page. So don't do that. They introduced the purpose of their interview, what it was about. They discussed the interviewee's background and discussed their viewpoints on. This one was about gender roles in STEM. And let's see, this paper is a little bit lengthy, but it's fine. I would shoot for around 5 or 6 pages. This one's going more towards 7 pages, not counting your title page. It's usually about 5 or 6 pages is usually what this paper ends up to be. Then you want any references that you used, and then your transcript. So I think this paper provides a good example. I'll make a few changes to it and get rid of this extra page and re-upload it now that I'm looking over it. Okay, that is it for me. That was a little lengthy, so thanks for bearing with me if you did. If you have any questions, please let me know, and thanks a lot.